Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give it just another 90 seconds or so before we really dive into this. Let a few last minute people join on. So I'll be back in just about 90 seconds. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Core Software's Customer Insights webinar, Evolving Your Technology Stack, featuring the Miami Heat and Los Angeles Lakers. We have attendees from all over the world today, and I need to send out a very special thank you to those of you who are joining us well after work hours in Europe, and those of you in Australia who are joining us just at the crack of dawn. My name is Scott Aller. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Core Software, and since many of you are new to our Customer Insights webinars, I'll take a quick minute to explain the series. We have the privilege of working with many of the most brilliant business intelligence, sales, and sponsorship staff in sports and entertainment all across the world. And because customer strategy and success is a key part of our partnerships, we get the opportunity to interact with these customers every single day and learn about their new ideas, initiatives, and really big wins. So a few times each year, we select customers who are doing something really remarkable and ask them to share their ideas and best practices on a Customer Insights webinar. And we keep these webinars free and open to the public in an effort to help spur growth across the entire sports and entertainment industry. So today's webinar is our third consecutive record-breaking registration, due in part to all of you who are joining today. So thank you very much for that, and we're thrilled to have you all attending. The idea from today's topic came from two of our success directors, Brian Friedhaber and Dan Smith, who have witnessed many of the complexities that go into selecting, implementing, and weaving together a multitude of data platforms, from ticketing to parking to food and beverage, and et cetera. And growing a business intelligence division and expanding your technology platforms to help supply that data is really a journey. It's not a quick decision. So the two teams that we've selected to speak today are in very different stages of their journeys. And we wanted to give listeners a perspective from both the early days and the later days. By the end of today's webinar, we'll have visited each team's strategy, their platforms that they're utilizing, their evaluation process for new platforms, and how they've executed implementing those platforms. And as always, the last 10 minutes or so will be a question and answer session. So I really encourage everyone to submit your questions as they pop up throughout the webinar. You don't have to wait to the end. You can submit your questions using the feature on the GoToWebinar control tab that you see to your right. So I wanted to introduce our panelists now. So joining us from the Miami Heat are Etan Krevkur, who's Vice President of Business Intelligence and Strategy, and Mia White, the CRM Manager. The Heat are several years into their strategy and have developed a robust stack of technology to support their expansive BI division. So welcome, Edson and Mia.
Thank you, Scott.
Pleasure to be here. Joining us from the Los Angeles Lakers is Christina Khosravi, Director of Business Analytics and Strategy. Christina and the Lakers are just about a year into their journey, and they're taking a very smart approach and looking at the bigger picture as they pursue the road of BI technology growth. So welcome, Christina.
Thanks, Scott, for having us.
And then very lastly, I would like to introduce today's moderator, President of Core Planning and Insights, Russell Scabetti. Russell actually was a former customer of Core's at the New York Jets before he came over and headed up our product strategy for several years. Today, he is now the president and oversees KPI, which is our new consulting and staff augmentation division. So Russell, thanks for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Edson, me, and Christina. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to going through all these different elements of your BI and technology stack and how they've evolved over the years. So let's jump right in, and just to reinforce what Scott said, please do ask your questions on the GoToMeeting. We'll keep an eye on those and even maybe bring some in throughout, or make sure we tackle any of those questions we didn't get to at the end of the conversation. The format today is kind of very much like a virtual panel discussion. We'll have some good information on the slides that our panelists have been nice enough to share with us in terms of the different elements of their technology and BI strategy, but we'll have a good active conversation and dig into any number of elements that you'll see on the screen. So let's start with the heat, with Edson and Mia. Whenever we talk about this topic, the logical starting points tend to be your organizational structure and your various technology partners. So Edson, maybe we start with you. You have a lot of titles, fairly big department up there. Can you tell us how that organizational structure has come to be?
Sure. Well, the vision really started about 7 years ago, where our ownership and leadership wanted to improve the fan experience at the arena and at Heat games. And it started with a mobile strategy where we wanted to be able to provide an app to our fans where they can access content and be informed with what's going on at the Heat and engage the brand. So that has quickly evolved to, okay, well, how do we learn from our fans about the things that they like and don't like, and what we could make their experiences become? And this is where we started evolving into, okay, let's start warehousing our data about the fans, their ticketing behaviors, their purchasing behaviors in our retail and our concessions, capturing what is it about our brand that they like, what is it that they don't like, how do they react to us in social media. And this is where our strategy around using data as a way to drive our decisions started to develop. So I came in about 4 seasons ago to start to lay out the technical foundations on how we are going to do that data capture. And it started with just myself, basically, and more of a engineering role in defining which technologies we should use, how it should scale, what kind of skill sets we need to bring in. And now we have developed into, just on the business intelligence side, we actually have a separate mobile department that's focused on digital innovation, and that has their own set of resources, but we work in an intercollaborative fashion on a day-to-day basis. But on the BI side, we've developed into becoming a BI and strategy, which consists of a data platform unit, a team that focuses on business analytics, a team that focuses on CRM, and also the strategy component. How do we leverage all of the data that we collect around our fans' experiences and engagement with the brand to determine what are course corrections and new directions that we should take with our business.
So looking, since you've been there about 4 years and looking at the numbers we have here, has it been a steady growth? It looks like, say, adding 2 to 3 people per year, or is there like a particularly big ramp-up period that was critical?
Huge ramp-up period after the second season. This is where, after we've put the platform in place and we've set some of our initial goals, that we decided to go out there and acquire the right skills, or develop the skills internally, but mostly acquiring the right skills externally, and start putting some structure around how we're going to execute.
Excellent. And then scrolling down below the structure there, we have a lot of logos on the screen. So can you, or Mia, can you take us through some of the more key ones in terms of the role it plays in your BI strategy?
I'll start off and talk about the Ticketmaster component, which is the cornerstone of our business, right? That's our key mission critical system that manages all of our transactions. This is where the majority of our revenue is generated, which is through ticket sales,
sure.
Right? But we also are gathering information about our fans through Google Analytics using our mobile app. We are also through social mining, are marketing to fan segments to try to continue to sell tickets and make the general population aware of what the Heat brand has to offer in terms of entertainment. And ultimately, what it comes down to is once we get this information into our data warehouse and we do our analysis, we leverage tools like primarily Power BI as a way of visualizing the results so that we can track our key performance indicators and also provide the tactical operational data that process owners can leverage.
Yeah, and going off of that, with Ticketmaster being the main thing, I'd say the two other biggest ones is our CRM, which we have Dynamics, and then partner with Core, of course, and then Eloqua. So using all of these, we're able to, have campaigns that go across social, email, and then, of course, down to our sales team as well. So we're able to kind of combine all of these and put them together for the common goal.
Excellent.
So if I were to just walk through, walk through the names that you have here. So obviously Google Analytics is for our app, is in support of our app. Microsoft Dynamics is for CRM. Built.io is our app platform. Ticketmaster is our ticketing platform. Azure, or the Microsoft Azure platform, is the cloud technologies that we use to do our data collection and also our artificial intelligence. Micros is our concessions and restaurant system provider. Paydiant is our mobile wallet for the app. Facebook is our social partner for marketing. Shopify is our digital and web-based retail selling platform. Twitter, again, is for fan engagement. Core is CRM. Gigia is our identity management platform for the mobile app. Tableau, we use that as for operational reporting and ad hoc analysis. Tableau is the tool that's available in Core. Power BI is our distributed platform that allows access to any analysis anywhere at any time. And Eloqua is our email marketing platform.
Excellent. Great overview. Great start. Let's switch over to Christina and talk about the Lakers. A couple of things, like Scott pointed out, there's very different stages here in terms of creating this department and growing it. So first off, I see it's yourself, and you did the CRM analyst is a fairly recent hire. Is that correct? How did that come to be?
Yep, we've doubled our group size the last couple of months.
Excellent.
We're, as you mentioned earlier, we're about a year and change old in terms of building out a business analytics and strategy presence here at the team. So the initial goal of the department from management was a directive to really identify the revenue and the untapped margin that exists with, our brand, not only locally, but domestically and globally as well. So we first set out to determine how to capture data and understand how our fans interact with the team on the ticketing side. So our first technology piece was to bring in a CRM system, and with that, a dedicated headcount to really manage and ramp up usage of the system. We're in a fortunate, position where we have, very low turnover on our service and activation and sales side. So we needed a dedicated rep to really provide individualized, customized training and dashboards and portals for our users internally to buy in and use the system effectively. So
and on the ticketing side, I think, you know, the interesting thing seeing that combination of a Ticketmaster and Access on, you know, in the same infrastructure. Can you tell us just a little bit about that for context?
Yeah, so we're in a unique position where we have two ticketing systems. Ticketmaster manages our, you know, season ticket members, our group sales, and really our primary market on site here outside of single game seats. So Access.com, which is our arena partner, manages our single game sales. So if you were to hop onto our website or walk up to the box office, you'd be going through, your transaction would be going through Access, which is then pushed into our Ticketmaster system that we then use for reporting purposes.
Excellent. And then with the introduction, you said Salesforce and Core with Tableau was kind of the first addition on top of the ticketing. You know, those are also all cloud-based. Was that important in terms of being able to add to your tech stack to be able to do that through the cloud?
Yep, it was important for us here, mostly, you know, one from a support perspective, and then two from being able to, you know, scale it in a way where if we did decide to grow here, we'd have the ability to kind of move on the fly and access our information and data when and where, you know, needed by all levels throughout the company. So, you know, the power users, our, you know, service reps, our activation reps, our sales folks, and then all the way up to, you know, our management level when needed.
Excellent. Great background. Thank you to both. Let's we'll keep moving on. So we started touching on some of these areas, but we'll delve a little deeper. We'll start with the heat again. You know, anytime you are, you know, there were a lot of logos on that screen, you know, and they didn't all appear at once. So what goes into your logic and how you prioritize bringing in or updating platforms?
Sure. So essentially, we reached the point where we're focused on strategy execution, right? And our operational model at the Heat is that we have all of the resources and functions that fall under strategy and BI, and strategy is there. Then we have all of the functions and roles under engagement, which typically is marketing. And then we have the roles that fall under monetization, which includes sales and season ticket membership servicing. And at this juncture, we really look at some key things. The first is we want to make sure that we are evaluating features that are going to drive the results we're looking to get out of the strategies, right? What are the goals that we're trying to accomplish, and how do the features of the tech help us get there? And second is, okay, how does it integrate into our existing platform? What are the opportunity costs? What are maintenance costs? And then in the end, it always goes back to the return on the investment. If we acquire the technology, how far is it going to take us? How does it impact our fan experience? How does it increase our revenue? How do we scale it? What's the cost of maintaining it? And what's the cost of training our resources on new skill sets, or acquiring the skill set externally?
Absolutely. And then Mia in particular, maybe especially as you're talking about those three buckets, CRM to me ties pretty tightly into both engagement and monetization. So how does how does that fit in terms of the priorities in that area?
Yeah, so actually the Heat have been pretty unique in the sense that CRM has really almost been our last piece that we installed. They did a lot of groundwork before I got here to set up the data warehouse and all those other pieces of technology we discussed earlier. So CRM is really what brought all of that to life. And so we've been able to, really use that to drive the engagement with our sales staff. In the last, I think it's been about 10 months now we've had it, and it's really driven a lot of monetization, and especially using those other sources that we have for leads and engagement, and then using the CRM for our sales staff to execute on those. It's just something that we didn't have before, and now we've really been able to use that to execute our strategy.
Yep. So the timing was right, it sounds like. I know it's been used in various forms in the past, but based on how you've been able to prioritize out of those other platforms, now the timing for what you're able to do with CRM is that much more impactful.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yeah, one of the things that it's worth noting is that in the implementation of CRM, I think we were up and running, and we made the decision in July, and we were up and running by the end of September. Using core software, of course, and we were able to also migrate the sponsorship team from their on-premise CRM platform onto the same core software platform within a matter of 2 months.
Excellent.
So
That's great.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying that's great. That's great to hear that you were in a place to be able to act quickly and implement in a pretty short timeline. To Christina, so one of the things you have here in terms of prioritization, I think is interesting, is revenue discovery, which I think you started touching on. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that is as a priority for you?
Yeah, absolutely. From our end, it's thinking about how our existing season ticket holder base drives revenue from their tickets and their investment, and how we can then in turn drive revenue from them. So we use specifically our CRM platform to understand really how we're servicing our fans. Our renewal rate is really an area that the company has focused on strategy-wise. So understanding how we can keep that, at its optimum level, while at the same time maximizing the revenue we can generate from our fans. So we think about, one, what are the sort of service touch points we can track through CRM that have the highest yield and return for us in terms of retaining our fan base? And then two, how can we identify factors that characterize those fans that are more likely to stay on board with us, and even get in front of those that might scale more towards fence sitters for the upcoming renewal cycle. So that's the piece on the ticketing side that we think about. And to echo kind of Edson's comments about onboarding and scaling sponsorship, we also went through a similar process with Core, where we decided in, I'd call it August or so this past year, to onboard our sponsorship team onto Core, and we were up and running with the goal of being up and running by the time the season started. So we were able to shift the timeline forward and have it up and running within that sort of 2 to 3 month time period. And from that front, really the goals there were to improve transparency and efficiency of workflows through not only inventory management, but also contract management from our end. I think we're in a position where we have, the fewest number of corporate partners across the league, but the highest yield per partner. So when we think about the strategy for, the upcoming seasons, one, we think about how can we, when partners are up for renewal, how can we, one, understand that window of time that we have to negotiate a new deal or look for a potential new partner within that category that we may not have interacted with in the past, and understand how they spend, and if it's in a place that could give us a little bit of a bump in terms of revenue in that category. So that's sort of the kind of bleeding into from revenue discovery into improving efficiency and creating this portal where our management team can understand when contracts are up for renewal and negotiation. And that kind of leads into that third bucket there of customization capabilities. So we think about with our tenured sales staff, and they're really good at what they do, and they've been doing it for a really long time. So I think in terms of buy-in, when we think about technology, having a product that is easily customizable and easy to use for some of our reps that have been doing things for a certain way and in a certain fashion for the time that they have been. So I think that's been really key for us, having a vision and a roadmap to onboarding a new technology with 3 steps as opposed to maybe 5, 6, 7, or 8 steps.
No, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, revenue and efficiency, that's revenue and cost, that's your ROI bottom line. But I always like to look at customization as the enabler, because the only way you're going to materialize the ROI on either side, the increased revenue or decreased costs, is if people are buying into the system, which actually kind of transitions to the next slide and some of the talking points you had, Christina. I'd like to stay with you, which is to build on that, is how that actually tied directly into your platform evaluation. Like item 1 here you have, of course, is ROI potential, but you specifically call out ease of training, implementation, and integration as part of your evaluation process. So can you elaborate a little more on that? I think it does tie into that staff retention that you have.
Yeah, I think it ties in pretty well in terms of thinking about what we want to get out of each technology investment that we make, and then 2, how we can 6 months, 1 year, or even 2 years out evaluate the success of each of the investments that we've made. So one of those factors for us is 1, obviously ROI potential, but 2, how many of our internal users rely now on these systems that we put into place as opposed to their prior way of doing things. So when we think about training, we're constantly asking for feedback and getting to know how each individual sales and service rep works, so that we can customize our kind of message and communication to them throughout the process. And I think complementary to that is that we do have a very open and vocal and transparent staff here. We're thinner than most teams are, but for the most part, there's an eager, yearning for more information and for more data to help drive decisions. So each of these investments in our platforms is helping unveil some of that information that's been sitting there.
No, that's great. A vocal user base, sometimes people get, can be concerned about, but I think it's an advantage, especially if you bring them into the evaluation process, so they feel like their voices were heard during the decision rather than after the decision. And the buy-in level I find to be completely different when they were able to be vocal earlier on rather than after the fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
To Edson, so also you have your kind of evaluation process laid out here. Can you take us through a little bit of it?
Okay, sure. Again, it goes back to what are the features that we're looking to acquire, and basically how does that impact our organizational goals. That's the start of being able to measure whether or not the acquisition of the new tech is actually going to get us to where we'd like to be. Then the second is really analyzing, okay, well, how does this tech fit into our ecosystem, and what it will require for us to scale as our needs evolve. So as the business demands new functionality that is in the space that this tech is supposed to service, we need to try to determine the future viability of the value that it will offer. And of course, it's how much does it cost to buy, how much does it cost to implement, how much does it cost to maintain, what kind of skill sets we need to go out there in the market to acquire in order to generate the value out of the new tech, and basically do that apples to apples comparison across all the options.
Yep, makes sense. Well, a quick question on the budget, the cost and timeline. Do you kind of go into these evaluations with that fixed number in mind and make sure things fit within it, or are they more flexible based on the particular ROI of the platforms you're looking into? Does it give you more freedom to be flexible with your budgets?
it does give us a little bit more freedom. So if we can demonstrate the ROI, then the budget's flexible.
Yep, I think that's an important point. I know it's not always the case when you organizations do have to stick to that fixed budget, but if you can prove out that ROI, and I think ROI can mean different things depending on the goals and the things you're trying to accomplish. It gives you a better leverage point to justify a different investment, a different approach to investing in a platform.
Yeah, and our approach is that we try to, more often than not, perform a proof of concept to demonstrate the ROI, and so that we can establish a baseline on how we will measure whether or not it will be successful. And that's been pretty instrumental in helping us to present the recommendation to our leadership.
No, that's great. Did that Mia, did that kind of help on the CRM side? Because since this is kind of the second go around, was the initial implementation and the benefits you had there, did that kind of help with the proving out the kind of the reinvestment in the relaunch?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was something that we knew we had room for improvement on, and so when I joined the team, it was something we actually, just as Christina was saying, we did engage the sales team and the people that were going to be the end users. We wanted to make sure that, we could go out and get any piece of technology, but if the people aren't going to use it and they're not going to be invested, then it doesn't really matter. So we kind of took the same approach where not only were we trying to get the best piece of technology and software that we could get, but that we have the buy-in from the end users as well.
Excellent. So we've ended up talking actually a lot about the end users in kind of the evaluation and decision process, but let's flip it around. And selling your ideas internally often means selling them up, in terms of, getting change, getting commitment to change. So Christina, let's start with you again. How, we've got some examples here, but what kind of tell us what it was like to get buy-in to launch this department, bring on platforms. How did you sell that change internally to the organization, particularly selling it up?
Yeah, I think there was an initial understanding that, the Lakers are in a large market and have been fortunate enough to generate revenues that, compete with some of the other teams in the larger markets. But what does that really mean? It's revenue that's coming in, but how can we future-proof that revenue and plan around additional, developments or particular scenarios that, could potentially, either dig into that revenue or, have us, sitting down 2 or 3 years from now and rather than starting from scratch, have a system that's already been in place that provides a set of information on our fans, that provides a pipeline of, new business on, the sponsorship front. And that really helps us, have a central kind of aggregated set of data that we can then drive decisions, proactively off of, as opposed to reactively. So I think from our end, selling that message up is really, looking for those wins that can prove, early on what our potential revenue could look like, and then using some of those data points that, we've experimented with to really then kind of look back and say, okay, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, and do we want to expand on certain areas that maybe didn't work and learn from them and use that to really help move on to the next sort of investment that we make.
No, that's great. And for anyone listening, I would encourage you to write down future-proof our revenue. I love that. Everyone talks about future-proofing their technology, but I think that's a really good perspective in terms of just that being proactive and thinking about what, not being able to rely on the success that you've had, being able to, use that to drive, to help explain and drive the reason for change. I like that quote. So no, to Edson and Mia, same general idea. And again, you're further along, so you've got more change to look back on, more platforms, larger department. But still, I think what was it like to get it going initially, and to continue that growth in terms of selling that up the ladder, if you will, or did it come from on top, which I think might be the case a little bit.
Yeah. So actually, Edson and I were just talking about earlier how, we are pretty fortunate that the directive did come from leadership, and they did come to the business and say, hey, we want, and it's specifically this point number 2 here, we want to be able to deliver the right message via the right channel to the right people at the right time. And, technology is our way to do that. So we had to figure out all these different pieces that were going to work together and how we were going to get there. And so that's why, our key initiatives have been the mobile app, our BI and analytics, our CRM, and then our marketing automation platform. So really what we've been able to do is, use all of these technologies to achieve that goal. And then back to what we were discussing earlier with that sustainable loop between strategy, marketing, and sales, and ultimately getting to that monetization piece. We are lucky, I say, that this directive came from leadership, but it is also a challenge because, they came to us and said, we want this done, and now we want to see results. So it's been up to us to really execute on that vision and really bring that to life.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's one thing to come to an idea, but if they're saying this is the direction you have to go in, does that create additional pressure on the delivering of the results? And how do you have to, what happens if something doesn't deliver the immediate results?
Yeah, of course it does. Anytime that your leadership is saying this is the direction we need to go, and you come back and have to deliver maybe not so great news, you have to not only explain why, but what you're going to do to correct it. So obviously, those bumps in the road have happened. But I think what we do really well is before we even go to them and say, hey, there's been a, I don't want to call it a failure, but a setback, if you will. We already have our, backup plan A, backup plan B, backup plan C, as to how we're going to fix it, and then where that's going to get us and how long it's going to take us to get there.
Excellent.
And if I can add,
please.
So by making sure that we provide the tools and capabilities and data, frankly, so that strategy can execute. If we made a not so optimal decision that's not yielding the results that we're looking for, we could fail fast and then be able to change course very, very quickly. So strategy is not working, strategy A is not working, we can quickly move to strategy B or C, or sit back down and come up with a whole new set of strategies. And by being able to have these platforms by which to inform the strategy, we can make decisions as holistically and as quickly as possible.
Excellent. Yeah, everyone likes to say fail fast, but sometimes you don't know if you're failing unless you're in a position to actually measure actively. And so it actually can be quite hard to fail fast if you're not set up for it. So, and Mia, one of the things you said there was about right message, right channel, right audience, and also item A there you have, it was the mobile app. Transitioning here to talking about goals, I think one of the things that's really particularly interesting with the Heat and the experiences I've had with them is I've always found you to be one of the most mobile-centric organizations, and I think that has to probably tie into the right message, right channel, right audience approach. Can you tell us a little bit about why mobile has been such a key element to your strategy and your technology approach to technology?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that, again, our leadership recognizes that what do most people have with them at all times? It's their smartphone. And so, it's a way to deliver that content and all of that information that we need to disseminate to fans and we want to disseminate to them in a quick manner and get it right to them in a digestible way. And also, that even translates to a game day experience as well, which a lot of that is obviously in person, but we still wanted to have that mobile component. So our ticketing is all mobile. There's arena information available via mobile. We try to make it, you know, that's really our main platform for connecting with our fans, I would say.
Yep. And the cool thing is the right message at the right time, right? So we can tailor and segment messages to those that it applies to. And so our fans are informed about the things they're interested in and what matters to them at the time that it matters to them. And so that's key. The other part of that is being able to measure our performance. The mobile extends also internally to where our executives are able to receive reports or on how we're performing on the key metrics of the organization mobily. So folks are walking around with the same source of truth, the same picture, the same information, no matter where you go in the inside and outside of the organization.
Excellent. Christina, you know, 1 year, about a year in or so, you know, take us through the goals that you had and how you've been able to progress towards them.
Yeah, I think at the onset, our goal was really to understand, you know, what our data sources, you know, looked like in the current infrastructure and landscape of information coming in, and then on top of that, how can we supplement that information to create more, you know, robust recommendations for management. So fortunately, we were in a place where, you know, as evidenced by our, you know, tech partners, we have, you know, a handful of data streams coming in as opposed to, you know, a few of the other teams who, you know, own their building and have direct, you know, merchandise or food and beverage or, you know, particular retail data streams that are coming in. So as a tenant, we have, you know, the Lakers specific data and information that comes in, and you know, because we're in the position we are as one of, you know, 3 or 4 teams that play in the building, you know, the decisions that we make are impacted across the entire venue. So I think understanding one information is, you know, data centric to the Lakers, and then 2, how that lives in the ecosphere of, you know, the arena and the game experience. And even extending the game experience to the event experience as well. So as soon as you show up to, you know, downtown LA and interact with, you know, LA Live across the street, you know, what are those sort of purchase decisions that are driving you to come back, you know, game after game. So on our end, really, you know, the goals were just understanding the landscape of data, and where it's coming from and how we can add to it. And then, you know, secondly, building in the processes that can help us automate workflows and create efficiencies internally here. So for example, we had, you know, our sponsorship department has requests that they'll put in for tickets for particular partners. So, you know, prior to having Salesforce and Core on board with us, those requests were completed on paper and on carbon copy. So we built out a workflow and a request system within, you know, our software to incorporate all of the internal stakeholders involved with that process. And now sponsorship is connected with ticketing, and ticketing knows when a request is made and or a request is updated to canceled, and can act more real time as opposed to kind of shuffling through a stack of papers. So I think goals wise, you know, year 1, really automating processes and creating efficiencies where we can, and then understanding how we can use that freed up time we have to discover more revenue potential.
You know, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, time is money is a cliche, but you know, if you're too tied into those other things, the upside of having that time back and having those efficiencies can be monetized in so many other ways. I think it is a very important starting point to free up your resources to do things that can have a more direct line to revenue. So I think it's a great goal to really keep in mind for folks. Just a reminder, everyone, we've got a few minutes, a couple slides before we wrap up. So if you got questions, we had a couple of great ones we're going to make sure we get to. So if you've asked one, we're going to get to that here in a second. But for each of you, we've got a couple of wins that you provided to us. You know, I think it's always important to, whether it's a quick win or a long-term win, to really emphasize those. So starting maybe with the Heat, if there's one or two of these in particular that you can tell us a little bit more about. I think everyone is really trying to find the success stories that can really help them.
So I don't know if we can say any one of these are greater than the others, because I think it's all very interdependent. In other words, the app is great. We get our fans using it, but if we're not able to inform them from the data coming from the data warehouse or providing access for ticketing, to make the ingress into the arena a much more simpler experience and pleasant experience, it really defeats the purpose. So I would say our win is in the timing as to when and how we made this decision to move towards the next stages in our evolution. And certainly, while some teams may approach using CRM as the first, which I think in the case of Lakers, it sounds like a solid plan in how they're going to solve some of their immediate business issues and needs. Where for us, because we've always had the sense that we wanted to become a cashless and paperless arena, it made sense for us to move with developing our app first and then putting down and then building out our data platforms and then consolidating our CRMs on the latest versions. So those are key wins, and it's what's helping us to now be able to seamlessly execute on our strategies to increase revenue, increase fan experience. But I just think because of the way we wanted to execute in the overall goals that we had, the sequence of execution for these wins was what was key, not necessarily one was more pivotal than the other.
No, I think that's a great point. I don't think there is one magic, if this is Google navigation, there isn't one magic route. There's reasons to go left versus right or to reorder based on what your particular, staffing goals, everything is. And I think it's a really important point to highlight. Christina, how about on the Lakers side? Any particular win or wins from this past year that you can, really highlight?
Yeah, I think we've touched upon the three kind of up on the screen, so I'll add in another one there.
Oh, bonus.
And that's yep, and that's we've been able to. We just completed our renewal cycle for this upcoming season, and through the cycle we built out a renewal dashboard and visualization within Core to help our service reps understand how many activities and interactions they were able to complete each day, each week, and throughout the process. And for the first time, we discovered that the visual of having, your circle grow larger and larger with the number of activities you have logged has driven motivation and moved up the sort of timeline to close and win seats on accounts. So we're ramping up our visualization and really hoping that can be a tool to motivate and help our reps really see what each other is prioritizing and making internal sort of incentives to really drive some of the goals and strategies that the team has. So on the visualization side, I think it's really helped provide that sort of insight into, okay, we know that X percentage of fans who have been with us for 30 plus years has renewed maybe 10% lower than fans that were with that signed up with us in the Kobe and Shaq era. So let's now focus our efforts on those building Showtime era fans that have been with us that may need one or two extra either phone calls or just a quick reminder that we've shifted the timeline for renewals up a month. So I think creating that sort of transparency on our end has helped drive and accelerate some of our goals.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I want to make sure we definitely give time to questions. So I know this last slide here talked about both challenges and lessons, but maybe we'll just stick to the lesson side for now and see if we have time. We can always come back. I mean, both of you have shared a lesson here that I think has been particularly important for you. So Edson or Mia, can tell us a little bit about why the training education has been so key for you.
Yeah, so I just think that, like I said earlier, and I think Edson would echo this as well, we've done a lot of work to get a lot of really amazing pieces of tech into place, both internally and then externally facing as well. But if you don't have the resources and the people who know how to use it and really make the most of it, you're not going to see that ROI that we talked about being so important. So, it's just something that we think about when we're not only evaluating new tech, but evaluating how to evolve current tech as well, that, these things that are easily able to be trained on, will we be able to have the people who are dedicated to maintaining these and really enhancing these things. So it's just something that we found to be a very important part of our process.
Excellent.
And to add, it's always around 3 components of success that we consider. It's always around the people, the process, and the technology. And if there's any lapse in any of those parts, you will most likely not get the results that you're hoping for, at least maximize them.
Great. Christina, personalization, I think, can't be underemphasized, and tell us a little bit about why that's a key lesson for you.
Yeah, I think echoing Mia and Edson on our end, thinking about how we can get buy-in for ramping up usage of our technology and our systems really stems from having that clear-cut sort of training and path to how one individual rep can change their sort of trajectory and their projections for the year based on a particular usage of new technology. So as we think about onboarding and investing in technology, we look for the ability to create and easily customize or personalize a particular screen or dashboard or interface that our users would most likely interact with and most frequently interact with in regards to their day-to-day.
Yep. No, I think it's funny. One of the things I've said in the past is, we put all this energy into personalizing things for our fans. I think if we try to apply that same concept internally, it can be really successful when it comes to technology adoption. So appreciate you sharing that. So we've got a bunch of questions. I'm going to try to get through a few of these real fast, because you guys came through with some great questions. So first one, directed to Christina. You made a comment about the Lakers. His question is, how did the Lakers objectively determine what worked and didn't work? I think you made a comment to that earlier on. So any particular way you determine what worked versus what didn't work?
Yeah, I think, this will be, our first year sort of having the sponsorship team up and running. By first year, I should correct it, first season. So we'll hit the 1-year mark in October. So I think looking back over the course of the year, defining success could come in the form of one, adoption and feedback from our sales staff. So how have they been able to use the system to, track their pipeline and to really understand how many phone calls or emails it takes to, one, get their foot in the door with the prospect, and 2, close that deal. So understanding, some of the metrics that it takes to really, develop a prospect and move them over the line into, a contracted partner. So those are the kind of more practical sort of measures of success in terms of, utilization of technology.
Great. Edson, this one's directed to you. You briefly mentioned about becoming a cashless arena. How close is that from becoming reality?
We are completely mobile in terms of ingress for the playoffs. There are obviously some exceptions, but we expect to exceed 90% by the end of the season. In terms of cashless, we are already piloting with our concessionaire partner, Levy, to have cashless lines where they're able to pay using our mobile wallet or with credit card, and we expect to extend that over the next couple of seasons. And we've already had our mobile wallet in place for the last 2.5 seasons, and we're just expecting for that to grow as we provide more incentives and more options to our fan base.
Excellent. This could be for anyone to jump in. What are some of the better data sources you're using now to get information about your fans, and what do they miss?
Wow, that's a pretty broad question. I think that your best data sources are the ones that you have in-house now. So for us, it starts with Ticketmaster and being able to see what our fans are buying and what games interest them, and also from our concessions and retail online. The next set would definitely be the data that we're able to append about our fans through, let's say, acquiring Axiom information, so that we could get a sense of, okay, for this kind of customer, whether there are other interests, whether they're financial and geographical demographics, and how is that relevant to their buying and brand engagement behaviors. And we can then use that information to build lookalike audiences as you try to use platforms like Twitter or Instagram or Facebook to try to generate new leads and customize your messages based on those lookalikes.
Yeah, and I'd echo Edson's thoughts and add in one more source, and that is, survey information. The NBA actually puts out a couple of surveys that we use internally to gauge satisfaction with our customer service and understand what we can do to improve the fan experience, both in and out of the arena.
Great. I think we can get time. 2 more in here real quick. One, that is a real question. Do you use Core for building reports for sponsors, brands, and how automated are those?
We do use Tableau on top of Core, and we publish dashboards and build out our sort of custom sort of data views based on what each department wants to see. So yeah, definitely.
On our end, we follow a policy of using the platform that best services the intended user. So for instance, if we have sales reps that require information that's operational in nature that they can execute on within the CRM platform, that's where we would develop the reports. And within the CRM platform and the core software, it's Tableau. But for reports that are aggregating information and correlating information across multiple different sources that are aggregated at many different levels to deliver many different types of analyses, we use Power BI as our platform.
Great answers. Thank you. And then this was probably more for Edson, but anyone could jump in. I just lost the question. What type of retention engagement rate do you have on your mobile app?
Wow, retention engagement rate. I'd have to look that up, but I don't have it off the top of my head. I remember that it has improved very significantly. Like, I think the first time we get a user, I think we're retaining them for at least 7 days, which is really exceptional from a mobile app perspective.
Yeah, I think most of our users are returning users, but we'd have to get the.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number. But I know because we also have Wi-Fi, I know that at least 25% of folks jumping on our Wi-Fi through our mobile app, it's about 25%. But in terms of days, I know that we do have a very impressive app funnel, and that's pretty much like you'll see like during the days or times leading up to a game, like you see the engagement happens, and then you have the drop off when between games, and then the cycle happens again.
Yep, makes sense. All right, well, I'm gonna thank you. We sorry we didn't get to every question, but really appreciate everyone sending those over. Scott, I'm gonna send it over to you to wrap things up for today.
All right, thank you, Russell. Thank you, everybody who joined our call today. Just a few quick notes that if you're attending any one of these future conferences that are upcoming, Core will have a big presence there, and if you'd like to chat with any of us, please feel free to reach out to either marketing@coresoftware.com or below. If you have any interest in our products or services as well, you can also reach out to Taylor Kern, our SVP of Sales, and request a demo. Hopefully we'll see a lot of you in the future, and you'll all be receiving a recording of this webinar afterwards. If we didn't get to your questions today, I apologize. There were quite a surplus of them, and we'll do our best to answer those and follow up, and if we can reach back out to you directly with answers, we will. Again, everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Russell, thank you for hosting. Edson and Mia from the Heat, thank you guys for joining us, and Christina from the Lakers. We really appreciate you guys taking part in this. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Awesome. Have a great day, and thank you.
Yeah.